Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be having a look around the Liverpool Beatles Museum. Now this is in the Cavern quarter in Liverpool, and the whole street really is devoted to the Beatles. As you can see, all the shops are Beatles related in the names. As you can see, the Rubber Soul Beatles Bar. It certainly is sort of Beatles heaven, and when you go in to the main museum, you actually get the gift shop at the start. You can visit it again when you leave, but you do get the gift shop right from the start. And you may have seen my video, which went out a month or so ago, where I visited the Beatles Story. Now that was on the Liverpool Quay, and that was a really great experience. I mean, it really, really was. And it's very difficult to try and make a comparison between the two places because they are quite different. And in a way, I think if you're a Beatles fan, you sort of need to visit both. I think one of the things with the Beatles Museum here is that it's on 3 floors and they haven't got a lot of space on the actual sort of ground space, as it were, so they needed to go up. And that's very much how this is put together. Now, the actual collection itself belongs to Rog Best. Now, obviously, you've heard of the name Pete Best, and Rog Best is Pete Best's brother, and he's been collecting Beatles memorabilia for over 30 years. Now, Roger's father was actually Neil Aspinall, and you might have heard that name. So Neil Aspinall was the Beatles road manager and confidant, and later he became the head of Apple Corps, spearheading such Beatles ventures as the Beatles #1, Let It Be Naked, the anthology, and Love, which is Cirque du Soleil. So Neil's unique connection to the Beatles is evidenced in the museum by the numerous pictures of the Beatles and him together. We see him at one point standing in for a sick George Harrison for a TV appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show. The Beatles counted Neil as their friend, and he was trusted by them implicitly. Neil was surrounded by the Beatles, and so, throughout his life, was Rogue. Rogue's brother is Pete Best. He was a member of the Beatles for 2 years, from 60 to 62, and was in for the ride from the Casper Coffee Club through to Hamburg and the Cavern, and ultimately Abbey Road Studios. Pete's insights into the early years are without doubt of significant importance to the legend that is the Beatles. Now, Roger's mother was Mona Best, and as the founder of the Casbah Coffee Club, the first rock and roll club in Liverpool, Mona had been dubbed the mother of the Mersey Beat. She provided the Beatles with a venue to practice, play, and perform in that Sir Paul McCartney affectionately refers to as our club. She managed many of their early business affairs, and amongst many other things, championed their return to Hamburg after their deportation. There we are. So that's pretty much what I've just read to you there. And that sort of sets the scene really for your tour around the Beatles Museum. And as I said, it is a bit different. It's a different sort of vibe to the Beatles Story. But I think it's got more items that were actually owned by the Beatles. But some things I think it does, and I think it does that better. And there's a bit more of an emphasis on the very, very early years. Whereas the Beatles Story perhaps tells the story in a more chronological way, and there's a bit more focus on what the Beatles got up to once the band split. So I think that's probably the best way to sum it up. But if you're a Beatles fan, I think both museums are definitely essential. Lots of stuff from the very early days of the Beatles, when when they were at school almost, or the last couple of years at school. That is actually a reproduction of the Casbah Coffee Club sign. But throughout the museum, you do, particularly once the Beatles have got popular, you do definitely see lots of memorabilia dotted around all over the place, and it does sort of follow the story. Some great stills dotted around, and that was one of the real highlights. Really, was lots of photos I've never seen before, and I'm a real Beatles fan. I've got lots of books on them, and you think you've seen it all until you come to a place really like this, and you do very much feel the vibe. And of course, this is mere meters from where they were playing. Really, the Cavern Club itself, obviously the original one is no more, but the entire street has been dubbed the Cavern Quarter, is what they call it in Liverpool. And the whole area is very much Beatles related, as is a lot of the city. But this is very central. It's near, the shopping centres, as opposed to the Beatles Story, which is down on the Liverpool Quay, and that's all been very much done up. It's quite a posh part of Liverpool, whereas this is right in the city centre. It's surrounded by shops. Some good stuff, some bits and pieces that you'll recognise, some clothes and stuff that the Beatles actually wore. Early business card there. Some great stuff on display, as you can see. And in a way, it did remind me of like a Planet Hollywood sort of style affair, with the bits around here and there. Some memorabilia, yeah, handwritten lyrics. I mean, yeah, signed stuff. Really, when you think about it, all of these items are, you could say, almost priceless. They really are unique, one of a kind items from potentially, arguably, the greatest band ever. Certainly one of the most popular, even today. You have to wonder if, Paul McCartney or Ringo, if they actually came and went through the museum now, what they must think. What must they think? As I said, this sort of first floor really does focus on their very earliest years as a band, their time in Hamburg, just sort of prior to real big fame, and Brian Epstein taking over. There's some good, all the while, I mean, I can't play it because this is YouTube, but all the while you're hearing Beatles music in the background. You hear bits from interviews, George Martin popping up, and the Beatles themselves being interviewed. And you've got an audio tour as well as you walk around, similar to the Beatles Story. And those little things on the side there, you just put your handset up to it, and it would play the next bit of narration for the area that you're actually in. I wasn't 100% sure that all those posters are actually original. There's definitely original stuff in there, but like those look a little bit too good. They might be reproductions. Obviously, some of the other bits here under glass, they are all definitely originals. And we were there sort of midweek in March 2024, and there was a fair few people going around the museum when we were there. It was pretty early in the morning, only about 10 o'clock, something like that, and it was already quite busy with people doing the tour. Cavern Club memorabilia now. And you do see all their early records, very, very rare records and demos and early pressings. My Bonnie there. with Tony Sheridan. I mean, supremely rare records in any form, and these are nice copies. And this little bit, they've evidently now a little bit more famous. And we start to see their influence on pop culture. This is going up and down the stairs, and I think they've done a really good job here. And we move on to sort of the next era. This is the next floor up. This is the next sort of era of their life, really, which is they were around 63 to 66. You could say the time of Beatlemania, the original Beatlemania. And lots of little props here. You know, Paul's Zippo lighter there. You got the Beatles monthly star in the Beatles book. And the spotlight there on where the Beatles were living. So, I mean, it's quite nice to have. It's like a full run of the Beatles book and things like that. This is quite nice. This is when they met Muhammad Ali. It's starting to travel now. A few bits of memorabilia. Flip your wig game. Evidently the fan club stuff. There was countless things, really. I see a My promo there. That's really nice. That's quite nice. The photos from when the Beatles met Morecambe and Wise. A few of those I'd not seen before. That's a book of the Beatles US tour. Plan of all the different places that on their US tour. The Beatles bubblegum cards. And stuff for their first movie. There's Neil Aspinall's Beatles US tour guide, all the different places. Fascinating reading, no doubt. More bits of memorabilia. The Beatles getting knighted. More fan club stuff. It's John's famous hat. And that's an icon in itself, isn't it? Some stills from Help. There we are. A million copies of Baby It's You. It's quite nice to see. These are some of the bits, I think, when the Beatles met Elvis. Here we are, yeah. Elvis gave them those little presents there as a thank you. And on the way back, you see the cabinet in the distance there. That was, they were bestowed with, hundreds of records of American artists to take back to listen to. I think they were just given to, a whole box though, given to Neil Aspinall, and that's where they are. It's all with mint records from that period after their first American tour. Yesterday and today. There really is a lot to take in, even if you know the Beatles story really well. Seeing it pulled together like this is very nice. It's good that the John Lennon film with Michael Crawford there, How I Won the War, it's a little still there of Lennon signed. How fantastic is that? 10x8 plus his hat from the film. Bits and pieces on Revolver. It's the Japanese tour, I think. More bits and pieces of memorabilia. Bit of a beaten up Beatles jigsaw there. It's more American memorabilia there. There's John's 2 books as well, which were put together into the omnibus for the Penguin John Lennon, which is a great, great penguin. More fan club stuff. I think quite a bit of fan club memorabilia has been donated by someone who's one of the founding members, and she had lots of stuff which she's given to the museum to display. Now we're about to go up to the next floor with the next part of the Beatles' career, going into 66, 67 to 70. Magical Mystery Tour, Yellow Submarine, and Sergeant Pepper. A great cabinet that. The outfits do look fantastic. Really, really nice. And some more modern, I mean, I say modern stuff, the action figures came out in the 90s, so they're not that modern, but this is a nice exhibit, the Beatles in comics, and it's all the various places, from the 60s upwards where the Beatles have appeared in comics, the Marvel appearances. It's really, really good, that, the Beatles story. I believe that might have been curated by the writer Tim Quinn. Some Sergeant Pepper's related stuff. As you can see, it's not quite on the same scale as the Beatles story. They just don't have as much space to work with, whereas the Beatles story had this cover, almost fully replicated in life size for you to have a look at. They just don't have the room to do that here, but they've squeezed in a lot. They really have. Some original posters there. Yellow Submarine bits and pieces. That's 67 to 70. Yellow Submarine bits and pieces. Magical Mystery Tour, the EP and the little corgi van there. Yes. Little picture in the background there, the Beatles on Plymouth Hoe. It does actually exist in colour now. And some Beatles 8 tracks, which you don't really see those very often. And the news of Brian Epstein dying. And a telegram there announcing his death. More bits of Yellow Submarine. Some old, some new. It's the original American submarine and thermos. And there's the original Corgi. Not a boxed one, but still very nice. That's the cover to the Beatles illustrated lyrics. And that also had a jigsaw puzzle, which is pretty cool. Beatles fan club stuff again. And some bits from the Apple shop coming up now, which wasn't really featured in the Beatles story. The stuff from that shop is very, very scarce. And the mirror there is supremely rare. This is John Lennon's egg chair. Like something out of The Prisoner. Bits and pieces for Let It Be. That's quite nice. A variation of Apple labels. And then the end of the Apple store. And then a bit now about the Beatles post Beatles career and their solo careers, but not masses. The Beatles story did have huge sections on each one, but as I said, it was more down to it's just down to the available space more than anything. But at least it is all sort of represented in a way. And it's definitely, as you can see, it's so different really to the Beatles story that it is definitely worth a visit. Now, just next door is you go down these steps into what's known as the Beatles shop. Now, I had high hopes for this place, but in the end, I have to say I was a little bit disappointed with the layout of the place. I hate to say it, but it smelled. It smelled like cats had been living there. And it wasn't that nice in actual fact. So if you don't get to go in there, do not worry, because you're not missing an awful lot. It's not connected to the museum, it's just basically next door. It is in the Cavern quarter, as I said, and it just didn't have the vibe. If you remember looking at that astonishing Beatles Story memorabilia shop, which was really, really fantastic, I would say this is not really in the same sort of vein. There's stuff there, as you can see, but it's not quite up to it. So I wouldn't rush to go there. I really wouldn't. But the Beatles Story and the Beatles Museum. Both of them are worth visiting, particularly if you're in Liverpool and you're a Beatles fan. You just have to go. It is as simple as that. So yes, if you've not checked out the Beatles Story, that will be in the end screen coming up in just a minute. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it that thumbs up. If you've not already, do please consider subscribing to the channel. I cover lots of this sort of thing, sort of the retro umbrella, books, comics, toys, and even the Beatles. And I shall very much look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.